Hello, YouTube. It's your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, coming at you again with another YouTube video. And you see the title of this video. This title is in regards to a video I saw by a popular YouTuber whose channel is called Life with David. And the title of the video was called "Gringos Go Home." And I'll leave a link to his to this video, and also please subscribe if you can to his channel. He has a lot of good content, and what I found very interesting in this video that he did is he explained how within Medellin there's a percentage of people who are kind of annoyed by all the expats within Medellin to the point to where, as you see in this video, they even posted up posters throughout parts of the city that say things calling us, calling expats gentrifiers and telling them to go home. And he showed different locations throughout the city where this is going on. And he kind of went on to explain what some of the issues are that they have with, like exports and that kind of thing. And I just thought it was very interesting. And I also wanted to give like some solutions to this issue and also talk about like some of the causes. And one of the reasons this is very important is because, a lot of times, many of us, a lot of times when we say we're going overseas or leaving the country, it's not just about women. One of the other big uh, benefits of moving outside of the country is obviously what like cost of living is cheaper. You can get an apartment for much cheaper than you would back in the states. Food cost is cheaper, and all those kind of things. So but what he's saying is that it's to the point that where now after COVID, more and more people have been given opportunity to work remotely, and also as the passport bro movement kind of grows, there's going to be a lot more expats and many more people looking for opportunities, to work in different countries or even to live in different countries, especially after like maybe meeting their spouse and that kind of thing. They may want to stay in the country and so forth. And so anyway, this is not the first time this issue has come up before. I wanted to show in two separate occasions something very similar has happened. Um, and in one case, it's kind of like a growing problem. In another case, it kind of ended badly for some. Like for example, I don't know if you guys remember back in about maybe like I want to say like last year, this news event had taken place in Bali, in which Bali had deported a U.S. digital nomad. So anyway, this is the lady right here. And just to sum up for those who didn't really who were kind of they just say like you've been living on the rock, you didn't really know anything about the situation that happened in Bali. But lately, if you type into YouTube like Bali, living overseas in Bali, um, that kind of thing. Some of this YouTuber here, like some of her videos will pop as well as many other people who are currently living in Bali, and they talk about how the cost of living is very very cheap there. They've been able to live like kings and queens in Bali, and in many cases, what they would do is they would invite many people from the United States to come there as a cheaper way to live. Cheaper way to live where you get more bang for your buck. And unfortunately, some of the locals there they caught wind of some of the videos on YouTube, and this woman here she wound up unfortunately getting deported. Now, one of the reasons now there's several reasons why that because put it away, her situation is a little bit more complex for a variety of reasons. Well, one, she's part of LGBT, and you know that Bali is very, very conservative. So she was saying that they're very open to that lifestyle and that thing there. So they're trying to say that's one of the reasons why it caused such a fuss. I don't think that's mainly the biggest reason. Other reason is, hate to say it, there is a little racial thing going on as well. That was part of the reason. And then the other thing was a lot of locals there were complaining because they were saying that with all these expats going there, and it's making like the cost of rent go up, and a lot of locals there can't really afford they don't really have their basic needs met, and they just think it's unfair that a lot of expats come there, live there, and it's causing inflation and that kind of thing. And my take on this situation was, in my opinion, there was a little bit of jealousy there. Although I say generally, when you go to these countries and you deal with a lot of the locals there, my experience has been positive overall. I haven't really run into a lot of like, you know, I guess I haven't had really any negative experiences. A lot of times dealing with the locals, as I said before, I'm usually very polite with a lot of people I meet there. Like I said, I tip well. I you know, I don't, when I'm staying at hotels, I take care of like the hotel, hotels. I don't trash it. I don't, I don't come with the typical dumb American, attitude when I come in. I don't come with a very entitled attitude. So as a result, I haven't really had any issues. But my whole thing is that uh, sometimes there were a few occasions I do know that at some clubs I went to, I could tell that there's a little bit of jealousy there. There's a little bit of jealousy there because you're able to go there, date some of the best women, have some of the best foods, go to clubs, and go to places where typically a lot of the locals don't go regularly. So you can get a sense of why some of them may be jealous for that reason. But on the other hand, one has to also consider that if a lot of these countries, and I want to say Bali in particular, a lot of these countries in general, tourism is a big sector of their GDP. If it wasn't for a lot of the tourists there, in many cases, they would be in worse shape than they are, including, I hate to say, like even Medellin, even though they're trying to like flex as if they don't need the expats and that kind of thing. Our dollar is very very strong against like the Colombian peso, especially in Bali. Our dollar is very very strong there, and although they might say, well, we only depend, let's say 5%, 10% on 5%, 10% of GDP is dependent on tourism. But you got to remember when COVID hit, COVID shrunk GDP for just about like 10%. And if you just look at the way the US country was, just imagine how it was in other countries. So you can see if that 10% of tourism leaves one of these countries, just think about the devastation that would cause. Now, the thing is, a lot of tourists, such as myself and some of you that are listening, of course, a lot of times we go there, we're not trying to live, a lot of us are not really necessarily living there permanently. We're just there for a little time as guests. We, have a vacation. We may go on. We might see some sightseeing. Some of us are like, might go on some dates. That kind of thing. You might go out and want to, go to the beach. You might want to go party. That kind of thing. And then you go back home for the most part. So, but here's the thing. In spite of that, what's not being said is that, and David had brought this up in his video, is that the thing is the locals there who generally rent out their apartments to some of the locals there, what they have found out is they know that a lot of expats and a lot of passport bros and a lot of tourists, we generally like to stay in some of the Airbnbs. That way you'll have like your own apartment. You got like you got like your couch, you got your bed, you got your kitchen and that kind of thing. So what they've been doing is instead of renting out to the locals, they've been catering to tourists and to expats, and so what they do is they take their apartment listing off of like the listing for the locals, and they put it on like Airbnb. So what that causes is there's a shortage of apartments that a lot of the locals there can rent. As a result, it's making apartments there scarce, and as a result, it's causing rent to rise. So as a result, a lot of the locals there, they're frustrated and they're blaming a lot of the tourists and a lot of the expats and saying that you guys are causing the cost of things to go up. But it's not. But as David has said as well, it's not really our fault. For the most part, like the governments there have to somewhat intervene and have it where maybe there's a portion of apartments that's set aside just for the locals there, and then of course you have like your hotels and your Airbnbs and that kind of thing. They might need to make some type of what's the word, like a threshold or something like that, of how many people can at one given time can rent out their apartments to like tourists and that kind of thing. A lot of times I've stayed in Airbnb in some cases because it's been a lot cheaper and convenient. But in many cases, especially when I went to Colombia, I've stayed in a lot of times I've stayed in hotels for the most part. But Yeah, so this was one occasion in which, unfortunately, because the locals had risen up, my opinion was a lot of jealousy going on there, slash a little racial component to it. But either way, she wound up getting deported. But here's the thing: there still are a lot of expats still being there. They're not doing this en masse. In my opinion, this was like political theater. They just did this to showcase, to say to the locals, "Hey, we are taking care of the issue." But it's going to be business as usual. As I told you before, towards the expats, we add a great deal to their economy there. So this is not going to be done in mass. This was just to showcase that they're doing something. I feel sorry for her. It kind of reminds me of a situation with like Austin Holloman because he was out there in the public eye. They wanted to make a big deal about it, and so they had, they try to have people come after Austin Holloman. Same thing here, just one of those situations. And of course, in a similar situation to what happened with Austin Holloman, same thing here. You have a lot of as much as as much as I hate to bring up race, you have a lot of non-black expats and tourists there, but they didn't really choose those necessarily to bring up to the front to make like example out of for obvious reasons. And then also, this is one of the reasons I also had said in general that me personally, when I go into a country, I try to blend in as much as possible with the locals. And a lot of times, I don't really like to make my presence known that I'm there. Like, yeah, for the most part, I'm not. I'm not necessarily there in the country and kind of like broadcast like their dirty laundry and that kind of thing. There was a situation in which there was one YouTuber who went to the Philippines and he was videotaping like a lot of the like the red light district area or whatever. They told him to stop. He kept doing it for views. Eventually he wound up getting banned from the country. So I don't typically do stuff like that. I think it's a little better to what's the word? Like for right now, the key from making this video so long, I'll just say that just have to find a very sophisticated way to to do it where it's not offensive to their culture, but you can still kind of speak out about it. And I spoke about this before. Like for example, right now, in my opinion, if you want to kind of showcase like the women of the country versus necessarily, but put it this way, the way I've seen it done best, I'll put it that way, is if you check out Pablo Frescobar's channel, also Chocolate Man in Thailand, also Richie Mack, the way they do theirs is kind of the better way to do it, in which they showcase, the women that they went there and they've gotten, and they kind of, so that way you get a glimpse of what some of the Thai women look like, and then Pablo's example, you get a sense of what the Colombian women look like, and you get to see that they're living their best life there. They kind of inspire you, but it's done in a way where they don't have to necessarily. Let's say they put up a video and then suddenly a woman comes back and say, "Hey, I felt very uncomfortable. You put me in this video. Can you take it down?" Now they got to take a whole video down. There might be lawsuits, or they might be trying to go to authorities saying that they took advantage of me. It's just a whole bunch of stuff that comes with it. So in many cases, I feel like you still should have fun and go out there and right now this is Passport Bros time to really shine and really what's the word, inspire other people, especially a lot of men in the United States who are suffering, really inspire them to go out and travel, live their best life, meet the woman of their dreams, or those who like to travel in general just for like fun or vacation. Just show them what life can be like outside of the United States. So I think we do need to boldly, in many cases, go out there and do that. But I feel like boldly is one thing, but there's also but at the same time, do it boldly, but also do it in a manner where you're safe against any laws, customs in these other countries. Because you got to remember, you're outside of the United States. Things are not things are not the same as a lot of your privilege. A lot of the privilege you have in the United States is not going to be there when you leave the country. So I just want brothers to just be safe. And yeah, so that's that. So the other video I wanted to show you was here was another example. As you notice, this video is called Growing Gentrification Problems in Mexico. And this is all the United States people who are moving to Mexico City. Mexico City has gotten very, very popular. So a lot of remote workers have gone there because, as you know, as we said before, cost of living is cheaper. Mexican culture is popular. Food is very great. Um, And of course, the women are beautiful, so a lot of people have flocked to Mexico City. The problem is there's been so many people, not just men but women as well, that in many cases English is starting to be spoken almost like the common language there. And then also, you even have Americans setting up shop there, and a lot of the locals are getting very jealous because they feel like you're kind of almost invading the country. You're invading the country, you're taking it over, you're setting up American shops. They're not able to make money off those sections, and of course, they feel like it's causing rent to rise, it's causing inflation there. So as a result, you have a lot of them speaking out about this, and there's been many of them on many Americans on like some of the social media channels just saying, telling the locals to shut up and being very, very disrespectful to the locals there, telling them to shut up. We can do pretty much saying we can do whatever we want. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's generally not my attitude. Even if, let's say, I want to stay there in Mexico City and they're unhappy about it, I try not to. I'm kind of against trying to rub it in their face as if what you guys going to do, because if some point if they really want to deport you, they can deport you now. The only thing that's kind of in the favor of the Americans is that we might have a little leverage in that, we're able to bring something to their economy as far as like finances and that kind of thing. But it does get to a point where it's so disrespectful that they may ask a lot of them to leave and may start deporting lots of Americans or making it very, very hard to work there as an expat. So I just feel like, put it this way, I just hope that a lot of Americans that go there don't ruin it for the rest of the Americans that want to come and visit or work there as an expat. But me in general, just to go back to David's video, I just wanted to talk about like, some possible solutions to kind of get around this because the issue is this in Medellin. Um, in my personal opinion, when I do like Medellin, but I prefer some of the smaller cities a little bit better, like Barranquilla, Bogota. I would like to go to Santa Marta, like Cali and those kind of things. I like them a little bit better, and one of the reasons is because as a foreigner, you're going to have a little bit more of an exotic factor to you because a lot of Americans in general, they're not going to the smaller cities. A lot of times they're heading straight to Medellin or they're heading to Cartagena. Now, I really have not went to Cartagena. Actually, I went there once. I went there once with my girlfriend, and then also I generally have tried to avoid Cartagena just for the fact that it's really like a foreigner, like a spot where a lot of foreigners from various countries tend to come there. It's more like a tourist attraction type of city. It's not really how like the what is way it's not really where like yeah, that's where it's kind of Americanized. That's the best way I can put it. So the thing is, a lot of people like the Medellin because cost of living is a whole lot cheaper than it is in Cartagena. Everything from like the food to even like dating, taking people. If you go to Cartagena, take us a woman on like dates there, you're paying almost like American prices. Versus you go to Medellin, everything's like much cheaper. So when people do a comparison of both cities, a lot of people would prefer to live in Medellin, even though, in my personal opinion, and this is debatable, I would say Cartagena is slightly safer than Medellin, but more people will be willing to take the risk of living in Medellin over Cartagena because of the cost of living is cheaper, and still got that city feel to it. Lots of great nightlife, lots of clubs, of course, beautiful women. A lot of the it's kind of like a more upscale city within Colombia because when you go to some of the smaller cities, like I went to Barranquilla, you'll notice in some parts the internet and Wi-Fi doesn't work as well there, and you could just tell it's not as built up as far as like the roads and that kind of thing as it is in Medellin. Medellin is more yeah, for now I'll just say like upscale and closer to like an American city than some of the other cities. It's not quite like an American city, but out of the other cities, I would say it's more of like more modernized. I put it that way. So a lot of times, a lot of expats I feel are more drawn to Medellin. And as I said before, this whole issue is not really the fault of the expats. Although yes, there are more people working remote. Keep in mind that it's not that many people that have like passports. But the other thing is, because a lot of the locals there who own these apartments, they see that there is a chance they can make more money catering to tourists. So what they do is, instead of catering to the locals, they cater to the tourists, and this is causing issues for a lot of the locals because they feel like they're being left over. They feel like this is their country and we're kind of coming there invading and that kind of thing. But my personal opinion is, me in general, if I was going to stay in Colombia anyway, as I told you before, I generally like some of the smaller cities a little bit better. But for those who do just want to like live in Medellin, my personal opinion, I would just, as much as possible, try to stay under the radar, respect the culture while you're there. Um, yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. But um, I don't know. I'm curious to see where this will go within like the next few years. But I don't think. But to be honest with you, I don't think much is going to happen, just because, as I said before, the country really does appreciate the additional funding and job creation that the tourism generates within their country. So for that reason, I don't think they're going to make a big fuss about it. At most, they might try to do some political theater, um, political theater, that kind of thing, to make it seem like they actually are trying to do something to fix the problem. But yeah, I don't think much is really going to be done. So, in my opinion, just for the fact that you might have a growing percentage of some of the locals there who feel kind of jealous towards some of the tourists there, I'll just, as I always do anyway, keep my head on a swivel. I generally like to fly on the radar. I'm not bragging about, hey, I'm staying here in this apartment and I only pay this much. You need to come here. All these kind of things where it's just out there in the open. Although it does need to be spoken about, but I feel like there's have to be some type of balance. But so anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about in this video. I just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention, that there is a percentage of the locals there who are unhappy with there being so many expats there. Although I told you before, it's not that many people with passports, but either way, they feel that a lot of the expats and a lot of tourists there were causing a lot of inflation and that kind of thing, when really the depreciation of the Colombian peso has little to do with like the tourism. It has more with to do with like their economy and that kind of thing, which in that case, they would want more tourists to come there, because we would, because then there'll be more. In my opinion, I feel like there'll be more job creation as a result, because it'll kind of grow like the tourism industry there. But it is what it is. But either way, you guys let me know what you think in the comments about this whole situation. Please hit the thumbs up. Please hit the thumbs up. I have a lot more content that I want to put out. Please subscribe to this channel if you have not. And until next time, this is the Passport Bro Wingman signing off.